Good morning and welcome to Fridays with Foster. I'm your host, Foster. Hope everybody's having a great week. Wonderful kickoff to the new year. Some people are already regretting resolutions. I was up this morning to work out against my will at 6, and as is always the case, by the time I'm done, I'm grateful. And I sometimes like to think when I'm in the middle of it and I start to get a little bit, or actually the beginning when it's tough to get going, I like to think my competition's still in bed. My competition is still in bed. They're asleep. That's one of the reasons I love working out really early in the morning, is because I can tell myself that. So let's talk about some pretty important stuff first, which is coffee. So today, I think I told you last week that I was actually going to subscribe to a small batch monthly subscription program through Pete's Coffee, which I did. Just got this in last week. This is a Papua New Guinea, and I think it's Bunam Wo is the actual name, and I'm going to read a little bit about it. Not to get too far into depth, and if you guys don't care, then I guess just deal with this part of it. Good morning, Brianna. Great to see you on here. And anybody else who wants to say hi in the comments to make sure I'm actually looking, that's fine. Most important, I'd like some more interactivity. It's definitely late enough in the morning, except for maybe some of my West Coast friends, to put in some questions content in the side. But anyway, so this so the bag states very simply fresh pine, aromatics, savory jackfruit, bright citrus. It's a dark roast, which is great. I love dark roast. And so we're going to the French press again, which so another thing, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm not so sure that I can stay on top of 52 weeks of different coffee. I'm gonna do the best I can, but I'm already looking at all the stuff I've run through from Nespresso and going out there. It's almost like a second job to try and get, all these different coffees. So I'm welcoming suggestions and or contributions. If you just want to send me something, I'll reimburse you. I don't care. It's just about staying on top of what's out there. So I love a dark roast most of all, and I always figure I can drink twice as much of the dark to make up for the lack of caffeine that's been roasted out of it. It's kind of how I roll. But yeah, so I was just thinking about that. So at the very least, and I hope I'm not offending anybody here of my followers, at the very least, I will have a monthly Pete's subscription update, but maybe in between those monthly updates, I'll have different coffees interspersed. I just don't want to go to be honest, or maybe I should do this. Maybe I should give everybody a fair break. Oh, and there's my beautiful wife, honey. She told me, by the way, since my son did it before anybody else saw this, that my son ran through and spilled my morning coffee all over my sleeve. I was very distraught. It was a moment in our household for a minute, and then luckily my wife brought me back down. She said, maybe I should post about it whenever you're doing your Fridays with Foster. I said, yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. But anyway, so yeah, so I guess we'll see what happens. Maybe one thing I should do would be maybe just to go up and down, start with Folgers. Go with some instant coffee flavor crystals and do an honest assessment. I would just have to probably create a grading sheet or something like that. I don't know. But nonetheless, so right now, Papua New Guinea, the first thing I'm going to do, I actually have this because I've been drinking this since it came. First thing I'm going to do is just take a sip, and then I'm going to put it in with some fancy doctored up, as my friend Matt likes to say, doctored up coffee. So this is the deal with Papua New Guinea, Bunam Wo. So it's the roast is it says it's like a halfway dark, but it's a little bit more than dark. Brightness medium, body medium, so single origin. Let me tell you like this story. This is the cool part. So Pete's has been working with the Boone estate for over 40 years. They partnered with them to establish the Butterfly School, which is cool. So it provides education and health services to the entire community. I absolutely love that. I think that's so cool. And the name harkens to the Boone insignia, which is a graceful blue butterfly, which unfortunately is not on the back, which would be kind of cool, but maybe Pete's can do that for the next one. So it's one of the finest examples of New Guinea coffee from the ground up. Big, plump, double A grade beans are left to fully ripen before the harvest. Okay, fully ripen. Then they undergo a triple soaking process. Interesting. So I'm assuming most coffees are just soaked once. That imparts a rich, savory jackfruit flavor. I'll be honest, people, I don't know what jackfruit is, so I guess I should probably Google it. And I read this before too, but maybe I was just going to try and pass my way through. Oh yeah, it's jackfruit. That smells like jackfruit. I have no idea what jackfruit is, so I'll have to look that up. And it anchors the pristine brightness of the high-grown beans. So the cool part again is where it says that giving back to communities at origin, which is that Pete's wing where they're trying to help communities, is close to our heart here at Pete's. And we think the spirit of hope and commitment to the future is the perfect way to kick off the new year. And Pete's, I will drink to that. I wish I could tell you which part the jackfruit was. I have no clue. But it is smooth. It is not as dark. There's almost no bite or bitterness to it, and it is very smooth. Again, I really am probably going to have to take a coffee course so I can comment more intelligently about coffee. But I mean, would that really matter to you if I said bright, dark, chocolate, some kind of flavor, unless it was chocolate flavored? Like, would anybody get that? How do I take that information and translate that to you? Anyway, coffee is not the only reason we're here, but that is really good. Okay. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about the difference between balance and laziness. And you're sitting there thinking, Foster, that's great. How do you come up with these incredible, interesting topics? Well, this is where I guess I'm just gonna make it personal about me, because I got to talk about what I know rather than kind of preaching to you about the way things should be. You know, this is a walk show. It's not a talk show. So I am, maybe without a doubt, the harshest critic on myself. And I was brought up in a loving family, a lot of support, had a lot of family around, and as well as emotional support from my parents and instilling in me to try my best and congratulating me in a lot of attaboys. But somewhere along the line, maybe it worked for me. Maybe I was able to use my harsh inner critic for some motivational chutzpah, right? But I am finding that later on in life, it's actually turning tail on me, and it's not helpful. And I think a lot of people that I hear through coaching at different levels within their business and personally, they run into some issues with this. So I often ask myself the question, am I doing something or not doing something because I'm trying to balance my life? Or am I just being lazy? Am I leaning back on self-care? Am I, where do you draw the line? Because the line could change from today to next week based on life circumstances. Today I could be in a circumstance where I or somebody else could look at my life and say, Foster, that's, you know, you're not being lazy. You're being lazy. You're not doing what you said you were going to do. Next week could be a completely different issue. Perfect example, personal example. My daughter's on the autism spectrum. She also suffers from depression and anxiety. Last Sunday, She called 911. She said she was having suicidal ideations, which to a point is true, to a point is a result of her being locked in her world and struggling. Um, Probably just the best way to put it. Uh, we don't believe she wanted to end her life, spoke with her therapist and everything else, but what we believe happened was it's just a being sick and tired of being sick and tired and wanting help, and we're continuing to try and help her, but it's obviously very frustrating. So there's two lessons here I want to discuss. First thing, there's a level of self-care we have to have, an awareness of what we are and aren't capable of. There are certain things that right now my daughter's simply not capable of. Reaching out for help in a certain way, making sense of situations, having patience with situations, being able to see things that we've tried to do to help her, right? And it's tough for her to see that from her perspective. I mean, as a neurotypical adult, I have difficulty, especially in COVID. My world is a lot of ours. It's gotten pretty small at times. And all of a sudden, these problems that were here are right there, and they seem really big. And they're ultimately not on the spectrum of everything. I just have to be able to take a step back and look at them differently. So on one side, I want to caution people about this awareness of what they are capable of, what you are personally capable of at any given time. The capabilities of my daughter in that moment were to call 911. That was the best she could do, which is fine. Now, obviously, that's neither balance nor laziness. That's just a situation to talk about awareness. I'll transfer that over to me. So I meet with the cops in my driveway, which were very kind. The fact that two cops were able to take their time out to come out to the house was great. Anyway, so a couple great police officers, and then I was up, and I was, it takes me a while to get emotionally back. I get emotionally hungover real quick when these certain things come up with my daughter, and I had a workout the next morning. Right, I had a workout, which means I get up early. We've got a 2.5 month old and a 2-year-old, and who knows what's going to happen with them tonight. It's Russian roulette, like when they're going to be up or not. And so, I started thinking in my head, well, tomorrow's probably a good morning to call off the workout. And I think that's when I made a decision that not that it was going to be lazy necessarily, but that would be in my best interest to go in order to keep balance in my life, right? So I wanted to share that story because if I had called off, which would have been fine either way, this isn't about whether or not I called it off, it's about life circumstances. If I had called off my workout, anybody would have said, well, of course, based on what just happened the night before with your daughter, we completely understand, would have done the same thing ourselves. But if that hadn't happened, somebody would say, "What why did you cancel? You're just being lazy. You're not upholding your goals, etc." So life circumstances are an important thing to take into account whenever you're looking at this self-judgment, if you will. So when I look at the difference between balance and laziness, it's really like whether we're doing something or not doing something. So let's talk about definitions. All right, first, balance. Webster's has a lot of definitions for this, but the noun of balance is mental and, not or, and emotional steadiness. Think about that for a second. Mental and emotional steadiness. Okay. Also defined as a means of judging or deciding. That balance. Right? So it's a bit of a different form of what we're talking about with the specific steadiness or balance with our lives, but it's judging or deciding how something is fitting into our world. Also, it's talked about, the word harmony is used. So the verb is to bring into harmony or proportion, right? I like harmony over balance. Balance, it's very tenuous. I'm balancing, and harmony is much more flowing, right? But nonetheless, so harmony is defined as agreement or accord. This is a better definition of harmony: internal calm and tranquility. Balance. When I'm doing things out of balance, I'm usually not making great decisions. Whether the decision is uh, properly conducting a review of one of my employees, or looking at one of my personal goals that after 14 days I have done away with. I'm actually, reminder again, so next week on the 22nd, I think Brianna's going to put a link in there. I'm doing a workshop. If it takes 21 days to build a habit, I want to check in with you on day 22. So talk about broken business resolutions or business relapses, things of that nature. That's for next week. But again, I want to make good decisions based on that harmony. So that's balance, right? Balance and harmony. What is laziness? Laziness, there's two definitions that I pull out from Webster's. The first is disinclined, or a better word, I like how this sounds better, a disinclination towards activity or exertion, which is laziness. That's literally a physical thing. And for some people, again, talking back in the situation with my daughter, some people who are depressed, to literally get up and get out and do something is a struggle. To walk to the door is a struggle. So have an awareness when you're looking at these kinds of things. If you are suffering from depression or something significant, we'll talk a little bit more about it. But as far as laziness is concerned, it is also defined as a judgment. I am judging a situation on the negative. So, Foster, what amazing information you've given us. Again, thank you so much. Being facetious, of course. What do we do with this? Okay. So here's how I like to look at it. The first thing that I want to gain is I want to gain awareness. Okay. Awareness for me comes at a level of personal integrity. If I want high self-esteem, I have to engage in esteemable acts. That's just the way it works. Integrity is best defined by how we behave when nobody's watching. It's easy to be holy in church. But I once heard a story about a couple that was looking for a church, and they would show up at the church and they would ask by people coming in as visitors, who saying, the priest would come and say, hey, what did you think? Was this a good service? Do you feel comfortable here? Because they had professed they were actually looking for a church, but that's not what they utilized to decide it. When they decided on the church, the priest was asked them, what was it? Was that we've got a great choir? Was it, the establishment itself, the physical aspects of the church are wonderful. It was a newer church and bigger. Of course, he didn't throw anything out there about the quality of the homily because he was a humble guy. But they said, what it was? This was one of the first churches that after Mass was over, when we were in the parking lot, people were kind and were letting us out instead of cutting us off. Good morning, Dad. Perfect timing to come into this. And so it's easy when people are watching to have integrity, right? So the question is, am I not doing something because I'm trying to make it right, for instance, or is this the perfectionism excuse, right? Well, I just it's not right, and it's important for me to things to be right. Well, a lot of times we use that as an excuse, that the idea of progress over perfection. I'm working towards it, but it's not right yet. So we don't want to engage in paralysis through analysis. A great question for hiring anybody who out there is looking to interview right now. One of the questions I love the most when it comes to hiring is, if you had a choice, would you rather it be on time but flawed, or late and perfect, and why? There's not necessarily a right answer, but I like to see how people answer that question, right? Because there's a certain level of imbalance no matter how you look at it, right? So the difference with whether you're being balanced or lazy or whatever in your life, that I look at is it's in honesty and it's in goals, right? So if you leave work early to spend time with your family, and then you go home and then sit in front of the television set, what's that really tell you? You know, are you being balanced or are you being lazy? Oh, work is so overwhelming and I got to go spend time with my family. Well, then be with your family when you're there. Um, the question is, what are you trying to accomplish through that? So the balance shouldn't just be the absence of something. Oh, I can't do this because X. Don't have time, I'm tired, et cetera, et cetera. What is it that I'm moving towards on the other side, even if it's from recovery? Uh, I ran 2 marathons in one day a few years ago. I've got the medal right here. Right. I ran 2 marathons in one day. My first and my last. And what I learned through that process is that I can't train with a personal best every single time I'm out there. I know it sounds ridiculous, and any runners are maybe laughing or not, but I have got to pace myself and I have to have a goal and I have to look to accomplish something on an interval level. So when it comes to the days that I had to rest, that was planned. There was something specific in there. When I trained for my marathon, I don't believe that I missed one day. And it was probably because I was afraid, because I wasn't that strong of a runner, you know, personally. I don't have a runner's build necessarily. I wasn't on cross country. It was football. So if I ran 100 yards, it was a big day, but it was, you know, more so it was just the small, you know, like the 40-yard sprints were the quick ones. So, so a lot of that was fear. So the question is, when we go into this, do you have a plan for whatever you're doing, that you're basing this judgment on what you're doing or not doing? If you don't have a plan, it's just an idea. How are you going to know whether you're being balanced or lazy? You can build balance into it if you've got reasonable goals. So if I have unreasonable goals, well, most likely I'm going to have to readjust the entire time through and I'm going to go crazy thinking, oh, I'm just being lazy or I'm not taking care of myself or I really have to take care of myself and I don't really know. The other question is, do you have stop gaps, you know, in this process and plan to double check what you're doing and why you're doing it? So if it's working out, if it's actually working, so I'm going to achieve X amount in sales this quarter for the business, or I'm going to open up 3 different locations. Okay, well, look at what's really entailed in that. Is it realistic? Or are you just going to pretend like it doesn't matter that whatever step you're going to be taking is going to require another 15 hours of work per week? That's just going to magically come from somewhere, most likely your family or your personal time or your workout time or something like that, but you're not going to discuss it at that moment, thereby causing friction. So the thing that's extremely important that I find we don't often have is accountability and support. So I like to think of accountability as personal accountability. I'm accountable to myself, but I also like to tell other people what my plans are, because then it's not that they can, you know, lash me and get me going or throw the carrot out there whenever I'm not doing what I said I was going to do, but they can be there to support me when I hit a wall. That really helps me better determine whether I'm being balanced or whether I'm being lazy. If nobody knows what the heck I'm doing, right, then how are they going to best help me? So I had a good friend of mine who says, you know, if you want me to help you with the emergency landing, it's best if you tell me about the takeoff. So I tell people about the takeoff. I tell them what my plans are. I tell them what my goals are. And the support is there when I need it in an intelligible way, because they understand from the beginning the journey that I'm on. So for anybody out there who's being too hard on themselves, number one, stop it. I don't have one shred of evidence that supports the fact that the negative judgments that I have had about things that I have or haven't done are supporting my efforts or my goals, or that's helping me in any way, shape, or form. There's only one way that it helps, and this is it. The way that being a harsh critic towards myself assists me is that when I talk about this to people out there, they believe that I can relate to a position that they're in. Other than that, it's had no real benefit in my life. Holding me down, making me question myself, it's not instilled achievement or inspiration, right? Uh, so stop it. It just doesn't work. Take a good look. Talk to your coaches, your trainers, your family, your friends, people that you trust when you get into a situation that you're not sure if am I quitting this class? Am I stopping doing this because it's out of balance with my life, or because I'm being lazy, I don't want to engage and it's too hard, or I'm scared? That's why we have other people in our lives to talk to. So I am always, always, always happy to help. If anybody is struggling in any way, shape, or form, business wise, life wise, I may not be able to help you with the life part, but I can point you in the right direction. I know a lot of good therapists. So I think there's something important to know, that you can always reach out. And this is also a judgment-free zone, because I am anything but perfect. And I just try and do the best I can, one day at a time. And I hope everybody out there has a wonderful, wonderful remainder to your Friday and an incredible weekend. This is Fridays with Foster, signing off.